So in this video, I'm going to be talking about a character trait that will get other people to respect you more, look up to you, help you to respect yourself more, and why in business you don't have any other choice than to have this trait. But first, hi, I'm Zach. I've been running a marketing agency named Braxter for the last 7 years, in which we've generated over $13 million in revenue for our clients. I've also recently started 2 new software companies named SaleTend and Fincaster, but if you want to learn more about those, the links will be in the description. So I was having a conversation with an executive not that long ago, and we were talking about different issues that were going on in the company, like employees not doing their jobs, results not being where they're supposed to be, things not progressing, things not getting done. And a lot is getting done at the same time, but it's never enough. And that's normal in business. Like that, you should expect to never be 100% satisfied with the results of things, and that things aren't perfect, things are going wrong. That's normal. When you're starting a business, you're basically signing up for just solving problems all day. The thing that I took issue with was more so the attitude about the problems, and how it seemed like the blame was always being put out on the other people, or it's always somebody else's fault. Oh, they didn't do their job, he didn't follow up, they didn't do what they should have done, or they should know better, and so on, right? And some people are just naturally like that, where they tend to blame other people. We tend to just sort of gravitate away from people like that because they always want to put the blame on other people, and if we're in their radius, eventually we're just getting blamed for things all the time. Whether it's our fault or not, it doesn't really matter. Even if it was their fault, they will blame us. But why is this such a problem, not just in our personal relationships, but even more so when we're running a business, especially if we're an operator or an owner or a founder or whatever? Why doesn't it work? Well, it's because it's our fault, really. Because if somebody makes a bad decision, you hired them. It's your fault. It's your problem. If somebody doesn't do what's right, it's your fault. If they didn't follow the manual, it's still your fault. Or maybe they didn't have a manual to follow the instructions properly. Maybe you're just expecting them to do what you would do, but they don't have that information in their head. They were not raised the same way as you. They haven't had the same experiences. They're not going to just come to the same conclusion that you would without being told that they're supposed to do that. And then let's say that you did tell them, you did inform them, you gave them all the context, you've been perfect in that respect or near perfect. That's fine. Like, you don't need to be permissive of everything, but then they didn't do what they were supposed to, even though you gave them the information. It's not your fault that they didn't follow it in that case. But if it keeps happening and you warn them a few times and it still continues to happen, now it's your fault again that they're doing it, because you probably do need to take more serious steps. Maybe you need to let them go, or maybe just have a sit down and a serious conversation with them. But in the end, it always comes back on you. And sometimes it's very easy for us to say, well, no, they should do their job. I'm paying them to do their job. And that's true in one respect, but having that attitude doesn't help you. And the reason why I'm just going to keep saying it's always your fault, it's always my fault, being the business owner, is that even if it is their fault, the buck stops with you. You're the one who's going to have to live with the outcome. If you're letting people just go around and do wrong things all the time, you're the one who's going to have to pay for it. It comes out of your profit at the end of the day. Even if you're able to get everybody to believe that, no, it was Susie's fault, it was John's fault, it was whoever's fault. Okay, maybe you convince everybody. Doesn't matter. You paid for it. You're going to keep paying for it. And then the other negative aspect is, now the people that are working for you, that are doing their job, are going to then just be worried all the time about you blaming them for something, because they notice that that's now your tendency. Because we don't want to think that people are going to behave like robots and just not act like social creatures and get affected by all this like negative attitude, negative talk, or pointing the finger, who did this, who did that. Especially if we're not really balancing it out with some positive reinforcement and giving commendation, or giving credit when they did something right. Like, one thing that I like to do every now and then is, when I'm planning to give somebody a raise, I like to actually just do it by surprise and kind of without telling them, because I feel like it's probably received even more positively than if I tell them that I'm going to on their next payment or something like that. Just because I want to give them like a positive feeling as well. I don't want it to be just about the money, because, well, then it never ends, and then the only way that you can increase their satisfaction is through money. And as we know from like psychological studies, that really loses its meaning the more the money increases. But one of the people who talks about this trait of accountability a lot is Jocko Willink, who was a ex-Navy SEAL, I believe, or a military commando, something like that. And he gives this story of one time that he took the blame for his whole team, even though maybe he wasn't directly involved in the bad decision or the mistake, but he decided to take the blame because he realized that in actuality, it does always depend on him because he was managing the team. But because he was willing to take the blame, and correct me if I'm getting the details wrong, but every person in the team then copied his attitude and tried to take accountability for their own actions. If we take that thought, that what if every team member or every company member took full accountability for their job or their department? That's usually what is the biggest complaint from owners about employees. They aren't taking ownership, they aren't taking an interest, they're not trying to be responsible for their role. I don't want to do that little bit extra, that's not my job, those types of attitudes. But if they take full ownership, then they're not going to act like that ever. They're going to go above and beyond, and they're actually going to be happy about doing so because they feel like you will protect them and respect them, and so they want to do it because they want to be better, and they're following your example. And that story just really stuck in my mind. And so we won't always be perfect, like definitely not. There will be times where we'll get frustrated with employees or contractors. We won't say the right thing. We won't have the right attitude. But I'm trying to make that my goal, at least when I'm managing people and dealing with these relationships. I do want to have that kind of positive environment. I want to be a good leader and help them to not just do their job, but help them to actually become better so that eventually they can also be leaders if they want to and reflect those positive attributes. Because if we're just bossing everybody around all the time, that's not really an environment that anybody wants to be in. Like, I don't want to be micromanaging people. It's not fun for me. There's other things that I'd rather do, but then sometimes you feel like you have to micromanage people because they didn't do things exactly the way that they were supposed to. Like, maybe I know the design, obviously it should look like this because the examples looked like that. And so we need to imitate that and get it to the same caliber, the same quality level. It shouldn't look unpolished. It shouldn't have misspellings. It shouldn't have incorrect grammar in the copy. And yet people make these mistakes, right? And errors happen. Errors are always going to happen, even when you're very experienced. You know, I'm sure I send out typos in my emails, and yet they will happen less if the people that are working for us are taking accountability. They are taking ownership, but they are never, ever going to be that way unless we do it first. Like, have you ever had a boss, maybe when you were working for someone, and they were really strict on your time, like when you show up, but they would show up late for things? Or even a friend or somebody that you know that was like that? Did it make you feel like you should keep doing that behavior or do that behavior less because you didn't feel like there was a mutual respect? Probably not, right? And while there is a difference in hierarchy when you are the owner of the company and you're hiring a contractor, like I definitely think that should be clear, that there is a hierarchy difference in that you are hiring them and they are supposed to fulfill certain requirements, which may be showing up at a specific time or working from this time to that time. So it's not that your responsibilities are the same, but it's more so that they will always sort of expect that you would be an example to them because you are the one who should care the most about this. And if you don't even care enough to show up on time, pay attention to the little details, be respectful, then they are going to start to just view it like a job, a set of tasks, not something that they want to actually care about themselves, not a company that they want to see do really well. And one aspect of it that I think is probably an even deeper one is that you also grow to respect yourself even more. You kind of view yourself more so as someone strong enough to take on the burdens of others. Somebody who, even when other people are making mistakes, you don't need to call them out on every single little thing. You are just trying to help everybody do well, take all the responsibility. You don't need to, micromanage people and make them feel bad about every little thing and then take all the good credit when it's your opportunity. You're actually looking for opportunities to give them more credit whenever they do something worthy of credit. And I think that's when you can really start to come into your own as being comfortable leading other people and helping them to be better. Over the last 7 to 10 years, I've been working with contractors, 7 years in the marketing agency, and then for a few years before that, while I was still working jobs and then doing some freelancing outside of it, I would sometimes subcontract out some work. And so I haven't managed like tons and I haven't managed 100 people or anything. I think at this point I've probably gone through working with 30 people over that time. And every one that you work with is another opportunity for a learning experience, right? And you meet all these different types of personalities, different types of work behaviors, people with different levels of goals, many job interviews, so you see how people act that seem like they're going to be like this, but then they turn out to be like that. And over time, you have to grow sort of a thicker skin to be able to just keep kind of working through it and learning how to act yourself. Like Gary Vee has this good quote, hiring is guessing and firing is knowing. And I think that makes a lot of sense because you will hire somebody, but their job interview version of themselves is like them on their best behavior. It's their most impressive version because they want you to think the best of them. And then there's a very limited time that they have to present that. And so they act different, right? But then right afterwards, you realize, okay, this person, they have problems and they seemed like they're amazing, but they do make these mistakes here and there. And then you kind of figure out, are you going to be able to work with it? Does the good outweigh the bad? If you decide to fire them, hopefully it's because now you know this isn't going to work out for this team. It's not a good fit, or they just don't have the experience yet to handle what we need. But that's your experience relating to the different personality types and work ethic types. Whereas the accountability trait is something that you have to develop on yourself, independent of how they are. It's just such an important character trait to have. It's also just going to help you in your personal life. I mean, people love responsible people. They know that they can trust them. They know that they can rely on them. And who doesn't want to work for or with somebody who is very responsible and you never have to worry about them blaming you for things? They're always trying to give you the benefit of the doubt and say that they could have done more. Working with people like that is just so nice. It's very rare to find nowadays, unfortunately, but man, is it nice when it happens. So that's all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like videos like this, then please go ahead and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Bye.